Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing with you how to make delicious and crumbly Mysore pak at home using only 3 basic ingredients and in about 15 minutes. If you're not familiar, Mysore pak is a South Indian sweet that is primarily made from besan, ghee and sugar and can be hard, soft or crumbly. This recipe is for making the crumbly version that is not too hard to bite into or too soft and mushy, but it has this perfect crumbly texture that will hold firm and yet still melt in your mouth. Though I have also shared tips how to make the harder and the softer version too. That being said, Mysore pak is a sweet dish that has very little margin for error while making it, so I strongly recommend you see this video carefully for visual cues and maybe even read the recipe shared in the description box for additional tips and even timestamps before you attempt it so that you can get it right the first time and every single time. So let's get started, shall we? For making Mysore pak, about 12 pieces, you'll need half a cup of besan, 1 cup of granulated sugar and 1 cup of melted ghee. And it's important that this is melted ghee, not granulated ghee. You'll see why soon. Start with sieving the besan to remove the knots. Once that is done, take a thick bottomed pan, and it's best to not use a non-stick one here. I have used my trusty yet battered and scratched old pan for this because it's the one I used to make Mysore pak, and since I'm recording this, I did not want to experiment with my shiny new pan. Then in the pan, add 1 cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of water. Basically just enough water to cover the sugar, and use cold or room temperature water for this. Then heat the sugar water mix on medium heat while stirring intermittently till there is a very light boil. Oh, and here, as soon as you start the heat for the sugar syrup, also start heating the ghee in a separate pot on a low flame, as this is what will ensure that the ghee is just at the right temperature for adding in the besan mix later. Not cold or room temperature and not boiling or burnt. This is why it's important to use melted ghee just in case, because that additional minute it might take to melt might matter. Like I said, a very small margin for error here. Once you see the light bubbles on the sugar syrup, add half cup of sieved besan to it and mix it in, stirring continuously to remove all the knots. You can also use a whisk to make it easier to get rid of all the knots. And I know this recipe calls for a lot of stirring and scraping, which is quite the hand workout, but it will all get over in a few minutes. Once the besan is mixed in, it's time to add 1 cup of ghee. Add this ghee slowly, little by little, and incorporate it before adding more. It's best to add it in 3 parts, about 1/3 cup at a time. At this point, it's critical to keep stirring and scraping because that's what will create all those delicious layers and air pockets in the crumbly Mysore pak. Once the ghee has been incorporated, just ensure to stir continuously till you see the different layers and ghee starts coming out from the sides. That is the correct time to take this off the heat. But there should be a little ghee leaving the sides, not a whole pool of ghee. Lots of ghee means you've overcooked it and you'll get hard Mysore pak. If you take it off the heat a few minutes before this stage, you'll get softer Mysore pak that will have a barfi-like texture, which frankly a lot of people prefer. But for softer Mysore pak, you'll have to be careful with the timing so that you don't remove it too soon where you can taste that besan is not fully cooked. For crumbly Mysore pak, for this recipe, remove it from the heat when you can see the layers being formed and little ghee leaving the sides. Pour this mixture in a container that can withstand the heat, like glass or steel. Also, think about the shape and the size of the container you choose, because the shape will shape the Mysore pak and the size will determine the thickness. For this quantity of Mysore pak, this small rectangular Pyrex container is perfect. Once you pour it in the container, the Mysore pak mix will bubble a little and then settle down. The most important thing here is to not help it settle in any way, else it will flatten the layers that are being formed naturally. Just leave it alone for 10 to 15 minutes. After 10 to 15 minutes, you can cut the Mysore pak into pieces, indulge in this crumbly delicious delight, and enjoy! For the written and printable version of this recipe, check the link in the description box below. And if you like this video, please hit the like button at the bottom of this video. It really helps me out. And subscribe if you haven't already. Until I see you in my next one, happy cooking!